Hey everybody, welcome to the Two Broke Gamers podcast. I'm Ricky.
And I'm Steve.
What's going on, everybody?
Yo.
We got a fun-filled show today on the Two Broke Gamers podcast. First off, we wanted to talk about, this is our discussion segment, so we wanted to talk about basically two things. One, which is like a real quick kind of thing, which is a Zelda trailer that was released recently, like the other day, actually. And it wasn't like an official Nintendo trailer. It's not the one that like basically Netflix is supposedly working on, you know?
Yeah.
It's more of like a fan-made type of trailer. And people are going nuts over it. I just went, eh.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah. I was just about it. It just reminds me when IGN pulled off the April Fool's prank a couple of years ago where they had their own Zelda the movie trailer. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, it was different. It had Ganondorf even included in the trailer.
That'd be cool. I'll go watch that.
Yeah, I remember.
Pretty sure so you can find it somewhere.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's still even on like just IGN, somewhere on the internet. It's there. You know, once it's on the internet, it's like always there.
You can find it.
Yeah. But I mean, the Zelda trailer, I don't see why people are going nuts. Like, oh my god, I can't wait for this and this, that. And I'm just like, I mean, let's wait and see. It looks okay.
Yeah, it looks all right.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I just want to see if I can give them some credit. It was from. It's in conjunction with the Zelda project and PlayerPiano. Put this together.
PlayerPiano, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks interesting. I just don't know if this maybe coincides with Nintendo's project or so-called project that they're working with Netflix, or if
I think it's a separate thing.
A whole separate thing. I think so. Either that or maybe Netflix will buy it. Like, we need this.
Maybe.
I know you weren't a big fan of Navi though.
No, I didn't like the little representation of Navi.
I just think
it didn't even say, hey, listen. It was like,
hey.
No, she said something else.
She said, hey.
It's like, hey, follow me or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
She just looks like a blue Tinkerbell. And it was like, okay, I guess. And then, of course, Link is silent. So he's like, just nods his head like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, that's all we have on that topic because it was just like, we just
that's all there is on that topic.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a teaser. Hopefully more will come from it. I mean, people say it's promising. I just kind of want to see more. That's the thing. You kind of have to sell me more on this. Like a good minute trailer is not going to really sell me on something that, you know, could expand further on that, you know?
Yeah.
Or that can be expanded further.
Yeah, I just, you know, like, it has potential to do a great job. Just show me.
Mm-hmm. Now, we wanted to follow up last week on a quote that we talked about because during our Nintendo section, I think it was either that or all the games. I don't even remember when we talked about it. But the former Sega CEO who was at Sega of America back when at the height of the console wars, he said a quote where that, you know, Nintendo's damn good at what they do, and they just could. I mean, even though they're kind of going through some, you know, whatever right now, but they just stick with what they know because they do a damn good job doing it. Another quote and another story came from this article, from an interview that he recently did, which really caught my eye. I was like, damn it, why did we miss that? And it really goes for how much Sony was around at that time, because as far as I know, and if you guys don't know the history, maybe you do, maybe you heard it 1,000 times, who knows, but there was going to be a combo system between between Nintendo and Sony, where there was going to be the SNES PlayStation.
That I didn't know, yes.
Yeah, where there was the add-on where you could play CD-ROM games on there and all that stuff. It was going to be the big thing that Nintendo was going to do, and this is going to be a big thing that Sony was going to...
That was before the PlayStation took off, right?
Well, that was before the PlayStation.
That was before the PlayStation was even a thing. It was just like Sony wanted to get into the business, and Nintendo was like,
we'll help you out.
Let's give it a shot. And then
they said
through.
no. And then they said, nah, but we'll work with Philips, and then we all know where that went.
Yeah.
But apparently, Sega was in talks with Sony to release a console as well, which really took me from surprise. Like, I actually did not realize that was going to happen. And apparently, this was like one of the things, because the thing with Sega of America and the CEO that was here, basically, if he wasn't CEO, there probably wouldn't be a Sega in America ever.
Probably not.
Because the way he advertised things and everything, he basically went against what Japan was doing anyway. And he was just doing his own thing here, and it sold well. He knew what he was doing, and it sold Sonic, and it sold Sega Genesis, and and the Sega brand itself very well here in the U.S. But there was a lot of turmoil in trying to do things that, you know, Japan was not doing, and that's what he said. Even the book Console Wars, I think the main point where the author even gave the point of the real demise of Sega was the fact that Sega of America and Sega of Japan were always in conflict with each other. And that's really what killed Sega. And this one proves it too. Like I just wanted to bring this quote that I just lost. I am so sorry about that. So one of the reasons, this is his quote. This is from this former CEO, Tom Kalinske. He talked about one of the key reasons that he left. They had the opportunity to work with Sony when Sony Interactive CEO Olaf Olafsson.
That name.
Hey, it's a name, right? And Sony of Corporation America and President CEO Mickey Shuloff had agreed that they were going to do one platform. They were going to share the development cost, share the possible loss of it in a couple of years, but each benefit from the software we could bring to that platform. Of course, in those days, we were much better at the software than they were, so I saw this as a huge win. We went to Sony and they agreed. Great idea. Whether it was called Sega Sony or Sony Sega, who cared? We got to Sega and the board turned it down, which I thought was the stupidest decision ever made in the history of the business. And from that moment on, I didn't feel like they were capable of making the correct decisions in Japan any longer. I
agree.
Yeah, that was a huge opportunity.
That was a crazy huge opportunity. And the board in Japan turned it down. It's just, you screwed your company that way.
I mean, Nintendo messed up too. And I mean, both the big companies were involved with Sony. And I mean, still to this point, I mean, it's funny that Sony is going to be like the production and distributor for the Console Wars movie, which is still funny enough. But, you know, if they were also involved with both. But I think it's really, really just, it's just funny how long Sony's been involved with this. Like, they worked with Nintendo. Nintendo said, nah, this isn't going to work. Sega was like, yeah, this should work. And Sega Japan's like, no, we're not going to do it. And
back then, too, Sony was like last place.
Sony
wasn't even a company. Like they were a company, but they weren't even like in games.
They were in TVs. They were doing like, you know, VHS players, you know, everything. They wanted to get into console gaming. They were making CD players and everything else, and they decided to want to go into console business. It just happened. It just was like they did it. They decided to do it. The PlayStation was released. That's it.
And then they took over the market. So hey.
Oh yeah. I mean, it took a while though. Let's not front.
No, it definitely did take a while. But when you look at Sony now, Sony is the juggernaut in gaming right now.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially the PS4. I mean, 20 million sold at this point, which we want to talk about later too. God. 20 million consoles.
That's more than Xbox and Wii U combined.
Yes, I mean, even right now, and you couldn't even tell me their figures and say, oh yeah, right now we're right next to Sony. No, you both aren't. You're not even close.
Together, the two of them together might be close.
No, it's not. It's just no, it's not. It's just not.
No, isn't the Wii like 9 and the Xbox like
9?
I thought Xbox was like 10.
Yeah, but that's like 19 million still.
They're close together. They're just not winning.
No,
you're not winning. Sony's killing both of you.
Yeah, and look at that from them trying to work with two other companies to get their console out, and it's almost reminiscent of Nintendo because I always bring up from the 80s when they were going to work with Atari to make the Famicom that was in Japan come to the U.S. And then that deal fell through because I forget who it was in the Atari. I think it might have been the head, the CEO. I don't know who the hell it was. But he thought that Nintendo was double-crossing them because they saw the Donkey Kong game on a ColecoVision and he just lost it. He was like, no, we're not going to do this deal. Forget it. Screw it. And then Nintendo said, well, we'll just try it on our own and see what happens. So it is reminiscent of what Nintendo did, of what Sony was trying to do. They were trying to get their brand out by getting into video games. With Nintendo, with Sega, both of them fell through, and they said, "We'll just try it." Yeah. And they were persistent, and then they actually got companies that made games for these consoles already on theirs, and that's really how they won. That's really about it.
That's about it.
So that's really our discussion part. We wanted to share that stuff with you. Of course, fun-filled show. What we have to talk about the GDC, Nintendo stuff. Sony stuff, Microsoft stuff, PC stuff. Well, it goes in hand with the GDC and virtual reality. So we'll talk about that soon, right?
Yeah.